There we go. Let's hop into it. Chimps so far looking dominant, but we're not halfway through yet, folks. It's a best of 7. Chimps, if they can lock this one in, they will be on match point. All pressure on Hermanos just before a Civ reset as well. Not a comfortable position to find yourself in, so absolutely important that Pollos Hermanos get on the board here, and it looks like it is actually going to be Lucifron and MiSTer. So they didn't go for VortiX. Instead, Lucy says, give me the roost, I'll run this through. MiSTer, as expected, will be on his signature English, though.
Yeah, we have to keep in mind that we have to rotate players between every 2v2. So right now it's 2-0 for Chimps. The next 2v2 could come at a moment where the Chimps are at match point, and this is something that Lucifron, MiSTer, and VortiX have to account for. So if they, let's say, feel more comfortable with MiSTer and VortiX playing, or yeah, that's the next available combination.
Yes.
If they feel more confident with that lineup, then they might save it for what could be a more important game. Alternatively, the other idea could be that Lucifron loves to play with Knights. We've seen that in game number 1. He is exceptionally good with those Knights, especially with the French. But if you use the Rus as a comparable Knight civilization, his strengths could also show in this game.
Cool. Look, I don't know how I've not really processed this before, but like even by longsword standards, that's a very long sword, isn't it? Like, it genuinely looks like it's longer than the man wielding it. What? Bruh, like, it's like a 6-foot long sword. That's not a sword. That's why English don't get spearmen. Now it makes sense.
You're confusing things, KP. It's either a 6-foot long sword, or it's a 4-foot or 4 feet tall man.
look at the torch in comparison. Like there's your measurement in comparison. Like a torch is like what, 2-3 feet long? I mean, good lord, that is large. It's absurdly large. It's a good opening as well, by the way. Like we have to remember this is a water map. Someone is going to try to fish, and MiSTer sniffed out the perfect target here, going after DeMusliM.
Yeah, this is one of those more awkward maps where you do have amphibious terrain over here in the marshlands. You can go for some fishing, but it's always a little wacky because you only have access to shore fish, and it could easily be harassed by even men-at-arms. Now, the big problem is that the men-at-arms don't really have enough torch power to really do a lot of damage on these fishing ships that kind of goes beyond the repair capabilities of those docks, at least.
Yeah, most people go after the docks, but we have to remember docks got buffed compared to the old days. I think they tweaked it, if I recall correctly. It was 2,000 HP. I think they put it down to, was it 1,750? It's still more HP, though. They're very hard to break. Yeah, there you go, 1,750. 2 men-at-arms would waste so much time on this, and an HRE player, in theory, could tech up. I think the other thing they're worried about is the logical play here with Marlians on your team is to build a transport ship and come over and pepper these men-at-arms with arrows, which I do believe DeMusliM is now receiving support for. BC just built a transport ship.
Exactly. There comes a transport. It's going to be just one scout inside, but good reaction. And I love the synergy between these two civilizations here for Beastyqt and DeMusliM. You see these civilizations teamed up so frequently with each other, but what we are seeing over here is an extra dimension of that synergy. And as you said, this transport play essentially makes it impossible for MiSTer to do a lot of damage with those men-at-arms on the fishing eco.
Just let me get my canister ready. What if this is just a big bait from MiSTer to make Beastie builds a transport ship?
Nope, that's not what's gonna happen. And look at that. I love this from Beastie. He's going to wall off the waterfront on this marshland region because he's expecting those Loya fishing ships to come through. Now, Lucifron is pushing them up right there. Will these walls finish in time? That's the big question. I think they will. Lucifron needs to see this and sail past.
He does. Like, remember, they changed fishing boats. They're basically scouts on water now. He's like, yeah, I don't think that's going to work, buddy. I'm just going to move in, fish, and convert.
Oh, he's even going to block it.
Oh, man. So now you can't even fully wall, and you need to get out of here quick. Remember, those conversions are quite fast, so if you don't run for the high hills, you're going to get peppered with arrows.
Yeah, you could aggro the boar with this ship and then let it kill the villager, but instead it's going to be the wolf that gets aggroed. Critical detail over here with the Loya attack ships coming through.
So, now hear me out. What if this is like a layered strategy intentionally by Lucifron and MiSTer, where he builds the men-at-arms, and he wants the transport ship to be done. And once they see that investment, Lucifron then has double value for this play. Am I
Interesting
huffing
concept.
copium, or does that seem like... It kind of seems logical, right?
I can see that being the game plan, that's for sure. And honestly, there is great value in these low-gear attack ships. There's only 2 of them, sinking a couple of fishing ships, and now this transport has to chase. But look at Beasty!
Mr. New, though, he blocked it. What a G, what a teammate. He keeps it open, gets him out, and you need to run fast. Remember, these transport ships, they hit hella hard. So we'll get away. But it makes sense if you think about it, right? Like, wait, what? Build, boys, build. Now, the downside of what BC just done with this play, by the way, is that he's idling a lot of villagers with this play, right? Like, these people are not gathering. They're just static defenses in a boat. That's a heavy hit to Eureka.
For sure it is, although he has quite a lot of fishing ships working out there, so he could justify this by saying he simply needs that fishing geek operational. And at the end of the day, I think he still got the better end of this. I love this move, honestly, and honestly, if you look at what Beast is doing here, such a quick reaction, especially because players don't often play these maps. These are not standard built-in maps, so it's not as much of an obvious choice to say, hey, I'm pursuing you with a transport ship, boom, I can just pop out to the villagers. This is not something that you do every single day, so the game sense there is just something that's really spectacular, just adapting to the situation at hand.
Yeah, and it's a hard choice to make because originally people would do this play, right? They bring out like 3 or 4 villages, whatever. They pack the transport ship full, and they giggle to themselves that I'm the most powerful omnipotent force in the world as they kill you. But then players start to calm down. I always remember talking to Ben about this, and he's like, it seems strong, but if you're calm and you don't overreact and you don't overextend your fishing influence, you realize your opponent just idled eco to do this. So you're ahead. And that's the important details. Like BC, when he makes this sort of investment, he needs to find a way of getting those villagers back to working quickly. Otherwise, you're just idling eco, and sure, you're getting something in return, but you're also losing out on a lot of resources in the process.
Yeah, the reason why it's alarming is because Beastyqt just now reached Feudal Age, so he didn't really have a chance to add combat ships, and in fact, he didn't even have a chance to add any military, whereas for Mista, he just went very heavy on the man-at-arms department, and he's forcing DeMusliM to flee all the way to the other side to what is once again an undefended gold mine, and this is slowing down that fast castle so effectively from the HRE.
And something to keep in mind here is, Beasty, the reason his tech up timing was so slow, these are shoreline fish. These are not deep water. You're not getting those phenomenal gathering rates. It's a deceptive thing about this map. You kind of feel like you need to be on the water to get map control and gradual income, but you're not getting the advantage you would on a map like Four Lakes, where all of a sudden we're getting these absurd tech timings on Feudal and Castle. Instead, you're getting a pretty pitiful gathering rate comparative to a farm.
Yeah, and speaking of farms, Mista does have quite a few of them, and as you said, because the shorefish gather rate is not terrific with the fishing ships, the overall food eco is gonna be probably even better for Mista here compared to his counterparts on the other side, and we could easily see Mista being the first one to Castle Age. As I'm saying that, I'm gonna take that back.
It's HRE, right? It's like you're not gonna be HRE, but at the same time, like your point is fair in that it's not just that Mista has better gathering rates because the farms get inflated rates from the mill. It's also that it's more cost efficient, right? Because think how much you're paying for a fishing boat compared to a farm. Farm's half the price.
It is, and it's also something that's sustainable in the long run. If you have battles taking place in your base, you are already in trouble. Whereas on the other side, fishing ships, they're in the middle of the playing field right now. They'll be prime targets in the next 5 to 10 minutes.
Exactly that. And that's why he's very content being at home. Of course, for Lucifron, it's a bit different. He needs that fishing. He needs it to inflate him and keep him competitive. And looking to be competitive in terms of aggression, you can see him now prepping knights. So he will look to get risky on land. And if you do control that central area, that's going to be an access point, right? Because if you're influencing the naval side, if you're blocking your opponent out, they can't wall off that area easily.
A big question mark is, how are they going to deal with the men-at-arms flood that's coming from DeMusliM? He's up to Castle Age, sure, he has 6 men-at-arms on the playing field. Wait a minute.
I think we're seeing the answer. Like it's kind of interesting, actually. There's a white tower being built by Mista. He's going to cancel it. It looks like there's a misclick. But keep in mind, once he gets to Castle Age, you ask, what's the answer?
No.
Well, there's an English player in this game. Do you not just mass crossbows?
It's White Tower again, though. They know how dangerous the HRE could be. And I'm not necessarily against it, to be honest. If you're afraid of being overrun by HRE, it could still be a good landmark.
Yeah.
It's going to open up the opportunity to add crossbows immediately. It's going to allow you to get Network of Citadels as an upgrade. In the worst case scenario, you can still add a second town center later on if you really need to. So if you're afraid of that all-in style approach, then for sure, go for it.
Oh yeah, I agree. But once I saw it, I was going to try to like explain it as the flood is coming, right? And he knows it's coming. So you can't get crossbows quick enough. So I don't think the White Tower is bad in this game. I think it's going to stop the dive into his base. I mean, we can't speak for Lucifron's base. That still might be a problem. But Mista, he's probably got a smug look on his face. He's smiling with a cigarette in his mouth. He's going, but I still get my game.
Yeah, look at this.
Lucy, don't care about him, but I get my game. Knights raid in, decent, gets a few of them. Forces idle time as well. And I think Lucifron, I wonder if he noticed that both players have their economy here stacked together, begging to be raided.
And it is being raided out there. Fishing ships getting picked off, and the overall economy is massively in the favor of Lucifron and Mista. And this is why that White Tower is working so well. You see, it was initially placed at the front, now it's repositioned to keep the farming eco alive. You just want to make sure that the initial men-at-arms don't overrun you, because you know that Lucifron is going to dive in and pick apart the eco of DeMusliM.
And this gives him better bang for buck, right?
Yep.
Usually the issue with these waves of Burgrave troops coming at you is like you don't have enough crossbows initially to defend. Here's a thought for you. Mista just built a White Tower. That means that he can get the network of Citadels upgrade early. And that means that he needs less crossbows to defend. It's pretty cool.
More than that, the fact that Lucifron is diving in with the Knights, picking apart the food eco now, previously he did so with the gold eco, means that it's not really a flood of men-at-arms for DeMusliM, it's more like a trickle, so the crossbows can easily pick that apart. Finally, DeMusliM finds the angle which is probably the most vulnerable for Los Pollos Hermanos, which is the base of Lucifron, although once again, you do have defensive towers out here, so credit to Lucifron and Mista, their reaction to that men-at-arms opening was absolutely spectacular.
And it feels like they've just given up on water, right? Like there's a transport ship back active again, but it's crazy to think how much value Lucifron got out of centering himself here. It wasn't just the fact that he was shutting down eco of his opponents. He's kept a way open. The shortest route to his opponent's base, which is why these Knights, every time we look across, they're at the backside. They're finding something to kill. They're also forcing this. DeMusliM, you know, I mentioned that water isn't that great on the gathering rate, so naturally he'd have to go into farms. But because he's had to go into farms, you might notice that his men-at-arms count has been pitiful. In fact, it feels like he's more or less given up on it.
It's worse than that. For a long time, he was on berries, because there was never really a sling of cattle from Beastyqt coming in here. So DeMusliM, as you see, he has to invest into farms, and that's just not gonna crack it here in a 2v2 setting. It just slows you down so much. Beastyqt is gonna have javelin throwers out on the field now. He already has 15 of them, but the worrisome detail is how weak the economy is right now for Beastyqt and DeMusliM in comparison to Lucifron and Mista.
Oh my god. No.
Yep. He's missing the upgrade.
No.
I think he didn't have the gold for it, KP. The gold miners were raided just when he reached Castle Age. I think he didn't have the gold and forgot about it altogether.
I mean, in fairness, you've got a Malian teammate. Just beg him for some gold. I'm not sure. Like,
I think, as I said, he didn't have the gold when he reached Castle. And like, what do you do
naturally forgets,
when
right?
you reach
like
Castle?
With wheelbarrow. Yeah, I get what you mean. It's like you haven't ordered the things, right? You're like, oh yeah, I'm going to click this now. And then if you click it and nothing happens, and you come back later, you're like, oh, good God. Alexa played Linkin Park.
Exactly. Like, he doesn't even think that he's lacking the upgrade right now, because that's the first thing you do when you reach Castle. But because he didn't do that back then, now it's missing. Well, it's not like it's really a big factor, because he only has 4 men-at-arms, but still.
I mean, he had, like, he went up to 10 at least at one point, right? Maybe he just, like, we don't know, like, because here's the thing. We talk in raw numbers. A lot of high-level players talk in feeling, right? And he was probably feeling like he missed his timing, the men-at-arms weren't working. He's like, they're just not doing enough damage. They're not very tanky. And it may not have instantly sunk in. He probably did realize now, I hope, because I think he's starting to build more of them. But for the time being, Beastie is at least stabilizing. Look at that javelin count. Look at that spearman count. He does have the answers. He can hold this, but key to the success is also going to be Ben realizing that these are boy arms, not men at arms.
Oh yeah, that's definitely going to be a key. For the time being, Beast is going to have to do some level of carrying out there, because DeMusliM has taken a big beating, not just on the army department, but also on the eco. He has lost quite a few villagers. Still, though, they're both in Castle Age as compared to Lucifer and Mista. But that eco lead is just gonna grow even bigger with Mista adding the second TC.
So he got the heavy maces upgrade.
Yeah.
No, in fairness, before I was like, Lamar, why would you get heavy maces? Oh, you've had the resource for that. You had the resource for like, Castle Age men at arms. You could argue that heavy maces is better because you're adding 6 damage, whereas Castle Age, although it adds some health and a bit of armor, only adds 2 damage. So like from a glass cannon perspective, it is superior. But I am also starting to now get worried that he may not have noticed.
Yeah, I think it's very possible that at the beginning of the Castle Age, he had to make a decision between the two, went with the maces, but he just forgot about the fact. Wait, Lucifron, we have to talk about that high trade house.
Oh my god, he's upgrading spears now. I mean, in fairness, spears, like, they're good here, right? You're up against crossbows, you're up against knights. So it's like, it makes sense to move away from men-at-arms for now. Maybe come in with Langsneck with the extra resources, but... Yeah, that is wait, can we check the high trade house again?
Yeah, that was a rather...
That's a low trade house right
location,
there.
let's just say.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to be trading in many furs in this area. You'll be trading in a lot of dirt. I can sell you stumps, my lord.
Yeah, I understand he didn't want to expand to the right side. Maybe he felt like it's too dangerous to go in there. Speaking of dangerous, if those knights find the gold miners, I think they will. I think they will spot them.
They are feudal, though. Like, I don't think that... Here's the thing. We always get baited by this. We see so many villages, and they usually just run away straight away. They don't even run away this time. There we go. That was the feeling I had on these. It happens so often, doesn't it? He's going to try to commit now, though. And they shuffle away. At least from one player, Beastyqt. Seems to be busy with other things right now. We'll finally realize and peel it back. So a decent exchange in favor of Lucy there. And credit to Mista for bringing those initial longbows and crossbows over to deal with the spears.
Yeah, look at the other side. Beastyqt's got some infantry now pushing the base. Oh, this is gonna be tricky. Every single villager is exposed over here. Wait a second, KP. This could be a disaster for the chimps.
They're just standing there right now. The was like, where do I go? Fully garrisoned. I wasn't meant to run away. Does he even have wheelbarrow?
Great question. I don't know.
But no, he's moving fast enough. He must have wheelbarrow. There's no way.
Whichever the case, he's not going to have villagers to have wheelbarrow on.
He's not moving fast enough to benefit from it. They're gone. DeMusliM, like, he has to be at what? Like maybe 20 villages, if that now?
Yeah.
Look at the eco in this game. 152 to 63.
Oh, what a raid. And Beastyqt was trying to do the same thing. The difference is that he's got a slower moving army with the infantry, and Lucifron could just run away.
It's so simple and trivial. I mean, you get enough javelins, you can at least poke at these knights, but the knights are poking at something more valuable to you. Well, speaking of those javelins, they are at least keeping Mista busy on the backside, but he's happy with this. You know, he's like pushing double the army away, keeping them out of Lucy's base, and behind this, they're laughing at the fact that DeMusliM doesn't really have a base anymore.
Yeah, right now, Los Pollos Hermanos have to be very happy about what's going on. They know fully well that DeMusliM's eco is a train wreck, and they also know that Beastyqt, while he does have a decent eco, it's still something that's raidable. And not only is DeMusliM gonna be low on villagers, same will be the case for Beastyqt, even with the Mustafadi warriors helping out. I think he could have even committed to that fight. Looks like Lucifron just wants to play this safe.
Beastyqt is bench pressing more than those Mustafadi warriors do right now. He's basically putting out fires and trying to set them ablaze himself, but you have to question for how long that's going to work. Lucifron is starting to escalate further and further, night count increasing. They do need to switch up though. With Mustafadi warriors now hitting the field, everything they've been doing is counted.
Yeah, and be careful when you go to close to that swamp area, because demolition ships could come in any moment from both sides. Right now, we're seeing those mostly for Lucifron, but one way for Beastyqt back into this game, or at least to start some sort of comeback, would be to get a demolition ship hit on those knights. They need to get rid of those because the numbers are increasing, and right now, I don't think that they can even take a straight-up fight, let alone catch up with them when it comes to raiding.
Must be some kind of pep talks going on in the VoIP for Beastyqt DeMusliM right now. Beastyqt's probably just yelling, "I am Malians" at the top of his voice, kind of like a chant to get him in the mood to win a game. He's still the threat factor here. You notice that Lucifron and Mista do not want to contest him. But if these numbers continue, their military force soon enough will be big enough that they probably could just go straight in for a fight.
Yeah, I don't think that they even want to contest him. At this point, it's just raid after raid after raid. And it seems like Lucifer and Mista aren't fully aware how heavy of a damage DeMusliM has taken. Obviously, we see everything, they don't. But if they knew how damaged DeMusliM is, they would just go straight for the eco of Beasty. Because DeMusliM has very little left right now inside his base to raid.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. HRE or OP Lidakor, 1.4 villager efficiency compared to the Marlins. You gotta kill them all. Yeah? They're not dead until they're dead. I don't know who quoted that in history, but I'm sure someone made a comment that stupid at some point. Can't have just been me. But a clash in the center, and this is what I was worried about. Like, you need both players here if you want to win these fights. Like, Beasty is, weirdly enough, still making this look, I don't want to say fully competitive, but he doesn't look like he needs to hide under a rock just yet.
Well, as you were saying, that caster curse kicks in and the men-at-arms will eventually clean it up. Don't forget, those guys likely have network of citadels, not just network of castles out there in the middle.
True.
So,
but
that's a big difference
maker. We are
maker.
seeing a lot more Mustafadi warriors. That's always something to keep in mind. Whoa,
Nope.
Nice try.
Oh, the demos are waiting. Look at the demos on the shoreline. They're just waiting for the opportunity.
The opportunity. Javelins, they do a decent amount of damage, so it looks like demo ships are going to have to dream another dream. They will be prevented. He even changed the Springle chips into demo ships additionally to try, but doesn't work out for him. Well, that's a weird sight. Looking in a Marlin base and seeing farms. I don't... Is that allowed? Is that legal?
I mean, at this point, does it matter? That's the question that you gotta ask. It's like 4 times the eco now for Lucifer and Mista. Beasty and DeMusliM have little to work with. Sure enough, there is still a decent army for Beasty, but he's not gonna be able to replenish any units lost, and it looks like now Lucifer is committing. And there it is.
Beasty does not believe he's an anime character anymore in Season 1. He realizes there is no comeback, no strength down the line. GG gets called. We are gonna have a competitive series, at least when we look at the score, as Pollos Hermanos have finally got a point.
Yeah, what a game this was. Much needed victory by Mista and Lucifron, and also a clinical game right from the get-go. As you said, there were some spectacular moves when it comes to Beast's transport ship play, how he revolved the entire thing, but then it really came down to those night raids by Lucifron. So much damage was done, but also we shouldn't discount Mista, how he repelled the initial aggression from the HRE, and even how he initially pushed away the gold miners of DeMusliM from their initial gold mine with the men-at-arms, slowed down the castle age of the HRE, and also opened up essentially a smorgasbord for slaughter inside the base of Beasty for Lucifer.